Fill here. What are your current steps to the sale? I'm asking, these are called, thought starter questions. Just think about this here. And I want you to think about, does every person in your dealership understand these questions? Do they understand who's accountable for it? Are you measuring it? What kind of result are you getting from it? Again, what are your current steps to the sale? How is your walk-in information gathered today? Is there a process? Big believers, process before people. Process before people is the key. Follow a measured, calculated process, and then inject the people into the process. It says, what is your follow-up procedures today, and how are you measuring it? It's an important question. Do you have a phone-up process established? And again, how are you measuring it? Do you have a prospecting process? Do you have an owner-based follow-up process? Do you have an e-commerce process? Can your managers identify who is responsible for these different processes? And is there accountability for following these processes? And if so, who? Who sat down and calculated? Again, guys, we can make a boatload of money in this business. You know what? 10% can mean a phenomenal amount. 10%. And again, are we maximizing? Are we at 10 on each one of these systems in our store right now? If you had to grade yourself right now, where are you in that particular categories? And what do you think your managers will think their major challenge will be in implementing a BDC or BDS or CDC process? It doesn't even matter if you farm it out to some other company and do it for you. What you said before, Rich said before, is very, very true. When the customer does come in from the appointment, because you got to have appointments, whether you set the appointments yourself in your own center, or if you farm it out to some other company and they set the appointment for you and they send it into your dealership, it doesn't matter. You still got to have a system or process in place to kind of take the baton, and that's a real deal. You can get all these appointments that are coming in and showing up, but the reality is this. If we don't have the right system in place for that, what's going to happen? You're going to blow them out. Absolutely. Okay, again here, do some quick math, and I'm going to kind of, just to speed it up a little bit here. Look at here. Percent of names and numbers that your people currently are getting right now. How are you doing? And again, tonight you can kind of sit down and kind of think this through a little bit. But just take a look here. Percent of customers that are being recorded. How many of us have some sort of a recording process? Call source or, what have you. Some way of recording it. Bottom line is this. Okay, you're recording it. How often do we listen to it? That's the bottom line. I can spend all the money in the world and record this stuff, but reality is, who makes the time daily to sit down and go through a half an hour and listen to the calls? Again, are we spending the money wisely? Are we using? I'm not saying it's a bad tool. You got to have something. But the reality is, there should be a point person in the store listening, so that when you do training, obviously, it's intelligent. It's based on what they're hearing, not what they think is being said. Again, also, percentage that were appointed with a specific date and time. How many of those people did call, that you did appoint, was it a specific date and time? Or are they coming down sometime on Saturday, sometime, midday? Again, I'm a big believer that, again, the more specific we can make the appointment, the better off we are. Does that make sense? And I also believe in the 15 to 45, don't you think? If we're going to set the appointment, we should always set it, let's say, in the 15, like 2:15, 2:45, something like that. And why do you think that the people show up when you schedule an appointment on the quarter hour versus the north or the south of the clock? Any ideas? What do you think? Anybody? They think you're busy, right? Plus, it's much more of a specific appointment, isn't it? How about I'm going down to the dealership around 2 o'clock? How can you go down around 2:15? That makes sense? So it's more of a specific appointment, and it also sits in your mind much more, if you will, it's much more important. When you go to the doctor, what do? Isn't that how it is there too? You always set it on the odd parts of the clock. Okay, look at number 4 here. Percent of customers that were properly qualified. And like Helmy said before, I'm not talking about qualifying them credit worthiness. I'm talking about qualifying them, what kind of vehicle are they hoping for? In terms of light, dark, 4-door, automatic, 5-speed, etc. Well, how are we doing it in terms of building that relationship up front with our customers with number 4? How about number 5? Percent of customers that actually wrote down your salesman's name, appointment time, and received what? Directions. To whose store? Not your neighbor's store. Your store. And again, I laugh at that because how often do we have customers that come in to your dealership asking for a salesperson that doesn't work there? Has that ever happened to anybody in your stores? Yeah, what happened, you think? The person thought they were calling your store when they called someone else's. Okay, how about number 6 here? Percentage of appointments that actually showed. Are we tracking that? Are we tracking that? Is it 50%? Is it less? Do we even know? Moving along. How about percent that bought? So we can calculate how many calls came in to how many sold. That's the bottom line. We want to get a minimum of at least 10 out of every 100 phone calls that come in. By the way, according to NADA and Nielsen, they've been doing a study since way back in 1990 to present. Can you believe that the average closing ratio, in other words, lead to sale, is between 2 and 3% of phone-ups? Think about that number. That's pathetic. And we spend all this money. So again, is there a need for improvement or a need for a system that is going to give you at least 3 times that volume? All right, again. And again, why does that problems happen, you think? Not knowing how to take the call. It's either a knowing problem or a doing problem. True or false? If I know what to do, what can I do? I can apply myself and get a better result. If I don't know what to do, whose fault? Whose fault then? It's the result of the manager, isn't it? Again, the speed of the team is always predicted by the pace of who sets? The leader sets. That's why training is so very, very valuable. Again, lack of time management. I've seen it over and over again where I'm in the middle of a story. A salesperson is talking to his buddy, and a phone call rings, and he goes, hold that thought. Grabs the call, blows the call off to get back to his story. Have you ever seen such a crazy thing? I mean, again, maybe it only happens in my store. But the reality is that I think it's happening all over the country. Again, phone-ups are not looked upon as a real high-efficient source of business. And quite frankly, they're right. If you're only reaping 2 or 3% of your phone-ups, and no one's taught you to do anything different, what are you going to do? You'll probably do the same darn thing. Wouldn't you? It's kind of like a catch-22. Dog chasing his tail. Round and round and round you go. Again, also, I mentioned number 4 and number 5. Again, poor questioning or not knowing what to say on the phone. These are some of the things I think happen time and time again. Here, look at this here. I'm looking for a 4-door, this is a customer, I'm looking for a 4-door Toyota Camry XLE with no more than 30,000 miles. Do you have it in stock? And if you do, what will you sell it to me for? Here's 5-car Fred or a 6-car Sally. Take a peek. You know, I don't think we do, but if you'd like, I'll go out and check to see if we do. Do you want to give me your name and phone number and I'll call you back in a few minutes? Does that sound a little familiar? And the reality is this, that's what you would say with no training. Why do I say that? Because when I got in the car business, that's what I said. What do you do if you don't know? You just wing it. And the result is what? No, I'll just call you back later. What's your name again? Thank you, click. The reality is this. In contrast, customers that are properly handled during the call become much more what? Committed. Committed to who? The salesperson. You know what, guys? We're not selling cars, are we? We're selling each other. That's the bottom line. If I like you, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy from you. I don't care what you're selling. It's all about people liking people. Reality, that's the bottom line. So guess what? It goes, if I can buy that for that customer that actually likes me, they're going to show up for their appointment. One thing, true or false? And what's the closing ratio going to be on that show, do you think? It's going to be much higher. By the way, let's just say a customer walks in. It's not a lead. It's a drive-by. He responded off of maybe your billboard or heard your TV commercial. He just walks in, unappointed. What's the closing ratio on fresh walk-ins? Anybody? How many? There you go. It's about 10%. 10%. At best, I'm not saying, again, if you calculate your total number of sales off the total number of opportunities, you're going to probably come across something like 20, maybe 30%. But that's a mixture of your owner base coming back as repeat, a referral, a follow-up phone call, and when that's all blended together, it may be 30%. But on fresh walk-in, first-time visits to the dealership, it's what? About 10%. And the bottom line is this. I'm saying that if a phone-up calls in, handled it properly, and they show up, they're closing at 36%. What's the difference between that phone-up that shows and the fresh walk-in that calls? Is there a difference? What is the difference? It's a warm lead. And by the way, what's your closing ratio on a B-back? 50%. Worst case, I would say, if you're a C student, You know, just average, it's 36%. The bottom line is that your closing ratio on a phone up and a beat back is the same. Could be a little better than that, but reality is we're being conservative, worst case scenario, it's the same. Look at this, 50% of the appointments that are set, the date and time, they will show up. If a manager will call and confirm the appointment. Now listen, I know at a scale of 1 to 10 of things to do, confirmation calls by a manager is probably number 15. Wouldn't it be? Between ordering cars, chasing stips, doing my one-on-ones, doing my training, all of that stuff, when do I make time to do what? Call and confirm the appointment. But if I do, the show ratio is going to go up by what percent, you think? 30%. Does that mean the closing ratio will drop down? Or will I maintain the same number of 36% on my closing ratio? What do you guys think? It's going to go higher. Why? Because now I know who I'm going to meet. I've spoken to them. And maybe the objection even came out early. And being savvy, as a manager as you all are, guess what? You're going to bypass and set and reconfirm that appointment. So they do show up, oh, yeah, man. You know, how you doing today? Nice seeing you again. We spoke earlier today. Yeah, have a seat over here. And again, see what I mean? It's a much better process. Now again, you got to make time. The reality is this. If 80%, let's say of 20 appointments that I set today do show, versus 50% of my appointments that I set show, how many more opportunities do I swing the bat? At a 36% closing ratio, how many more deals will I sell? So on a scale of 1 to 10 things to do, where does phone confirmation calls fall? There's more value to it.
Yeah, let's really ask that question, and that's the reason that I came up. Now, one of the things that we don't do in the car business is we don't want to dial the phone and confirm a call because there's nothing glorious about that. You know, we are not conquering new frontiers. I'm not going through the wonderful forest and slaying the dragon and saving the princess. I'm just confirming a call. Kind of wimpy, isn't it? That being said, what's the effectiveness of having that one simple little thing get done? 15, 20 minutes a day, maybe. And if you're a stud that is working in an incredible dealership with 100 appointments on a Saturday, it might take you an hour. But for that hour of power, for that half an hour, what's the effectiveness of that job?
Wow, it's unbelievable. Can you see the value to that confirmation call?
Here's what it is. I mean, if you don't see it, let's explain it. You have 25 appointments. Those appointments are not confirmed. How many of them show up?
Half. 12.
12. You confirm those appointments. How many of them show up?
18.
20, 25.
Right.
It's just that simple. Now, that being said, of those 20 to 25 that show up, we go from 12 to 20 to 25. Of those, what's your closing ratio since they already know your name? You called them and told them how important they are to you and how exciting you are to serve them and take care of them. What's the closing ratio, higher or lower?
It's going to go much higher.
The sales process, would it be easier or more difficult?
Easier.
So instead of us focusing on, you know, I just want to close a deal. Let me tell you something. I don't want to close any deals. I want the deals to be closed. I just want to say, man, good to have you here.
Hey, and listen,
you
guys,
bought a car from that guy?
And the bottom line is simply...
you know, that type of deal. We want to have fun.
And really, and the bottom line is, this customer bought your salesperson already. Think about it once. They like the person enough to put time aside. Their intention is to go there. Now realize, 86% of every customer that left their home to go to your dealership left saying, I'm going to buy a car today. That's their intentions. They want to buy the car. Yet we closed 10% or maybe 16 or 18% of those at best. What happened? Didn't like the person that was talking to the dealership. The reality is this. Where are you today concerning your true potential? Help me mention this. Hour of power. For who? For yours truly. But the reality is this. Where is your dealership today concerning its potential? Are you at 50% of what you're capable of doing? Are you at 75%, 80%? The reality is this. There's always room to get to the next level. Remember one thing. You know, the Japanese have a philosophy called Kaizen. Constant and never-ending improvement. That's what they do. And that's why the Japanese, again, get better and better. They're never settling Are we pushing ourselves day in and day out, sharpening the saw every day to get ourselves to the next level? That's the bottom line. Again, in your dealership, who's tracking the call? What manager specifically is accountable? Who is accountable? Do you know? If you have to wait more than 2 seconds to think of the person, you don't have one. Okay? You don't have one. How are you reporting your results? What's the name of the report? Do you know? 2 seconds. You don't have one. Again, it has to be instinct. Also, who is currently coaching your people on how to improve the process? Every day. And importantly, where do they get their expertise? Again, calling is better than not calling. Handling a call is better than not handling a call, but realize that an intelligent phone call, an intelligent process is much better than just the process. Here's my model. I'm a big believer in process. You got to have one. For each of those things we talked about a little bit ago. Phone ups, follow-up, owner base, e-commerce, road to the sale, gathering information, all that stuff. That's a process. The reality is this. Who's coaching on it day in and day out? Who's mentoring the people on it? And where are you getting your information? I.e., look at this. I put the people in. You put your people over here into the process. That process is just some sort of one that you've gotten that's tried and it's true. It works. You can measure it through other people in your 20 group, us, me. I can give you some great stuff. All right, there's your process. You put your people into the process. You got to have coaching. Everyone's got to have a coach. And also mentoring. Is there a difference between coaching and mentoring? What do you think? Yes. Of course there is. Mentoring is that time you spend one-on-one with that person. Now, realizing this, there has to be accountability on what? The phone process. I.e., the way it comes in, the way it goes to a person, what they did to it, was it appointed, was it not appointed, if it wasn't appointed, who got notified, who went back and called them back, who went to try to reappoint them, was it confirmed, if it wasn't confirmed, what are the consequences, if it was confirmed, guess what happens next? Do they show up, do they not show up, if they didn't show, what happens next? The whole flow of process, okay? So we put our people in the process. The key is getting them all certified to handle the calls intelligently, both inbound and outbound. Coaching and mentoring based around accountability. The accountability will produce what? There it is, guys. Reports. Accurate reports. Reports that you can actually count on. Not just kind of get you within 50%. I mean, accurate reports that you can say, hey, listen, this is your strengths, Doug, right? This is this guy's strengths. This is his weaknesses. So as a coach, as a mentor, I can pour my heart out into my people, getting them to the point where they're certified. It doesn't matter if it's certified for phone or road to the sale or follow-up. I don't care. It's coaching and mentoring. That's your job. You're sitting in the position of a manager for one reason and one reason only. You're trying to build your business. And your human capital are those soldiers out there fighting the battle day in and day out. And guess what? That coaching that you do there, day in and day out, is going to predict the result. So again, role play. Role play, role play, role play. And I want to build on what? Your strengths. I want to minimize your weaknesses. And the only way I can do that is if I know specifically through reports that show me that. And then guess what happens? The process is conditioned. What does conditioned response mean? What's that mean, everybody? You don't have to think. You go from unconsciously incompetent to consciously competent to unconsciously competent. It's an automatic response. If I throw you this little clicker right now, guess what, Rich? He catches it. I've got a 3-year-old daughter at home. It would hit her on the nose, okay? She hasn't got that skill down just yet. Now, my 7-year-old boy, he can do it really well. But guess what? We played catch a lot. But that role-playing has to occur day in and day out until I can predict, like Doug said, I don't want you thinking more than even a half a second. It's got to be instinct. It's just going to happen. If there's any thought, guess what happens? You blew it. You blew the control.